I'm gonna move up here. I can't see back there.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So let's talk about the test here a little bit. Remember, test is not next class, but the class after, right? I moved it because A class had originally the test was scheduled for Friday on the mass day. Felt like on the first test where you're really kind of unsure about what this is going to look like and how we want those extra 10 minutes. So we did that. Next class will start stuff for the next test. So it won't be a lot. It'll be hard. I know. Famous last words in school, it won't be hard. It really won't be. Stuff you did last year. So I updated the test breakdown about what to expect. So part one, you'll have 10 multiple choice questions. We'll do some multiple choice practice today to kind of get used to that. But they're the same kinds of questions you would have seen. They're just put into a multiple choice format, but we'll still do some practice doing those sorts of things here today in class. You'll have one continuity proof, either point or whole domain or both, right? If it's a whole domain, oftentimes you have to do the point as part of that problem, just like you did in the homework quiz, which I think you took it, I've given it back to you. And then one AP style free response question. So again, that'll have a couple of parts to it, but it'll be topics like, evaluating limits from a graph or something like, something in the style that like we've done, but maybe presented in a way that's surprising. So in the calculator section, you turn in part one, you pick up part two in your calculator. There's 5 limit questions. The directions will ask you to do the limits algebraically, but you still have a calculator. So what should you do? Check it with the graph or a table, right? So I want you to have that option. So it's intentional. You should check them. If it doesn't make sense, though, the picture you're getting and the answer you're getting algebraically, make sure you've got it into your calculator correctly, and then go back through and look for, did I do some bad algebra here, or do some other silly mistake. Additionally, you'll have a intermediate value theorem question. So it'd be like, show that like this equation has a solution here on this interval, or has this solution on this interval, right? So again, should be able to write an answer to like an IVT theorem proof using like the format that we practiced on the delta math. Like since f of x is continuous and f of this is less than or equal to the desired y value less than or equal to this, that intermediate value states that there exists some c on the interval from input to input such that f of c is equal to desired y value, right? So it's just kind of checking to make sure you know the format of how to answer when it's intermediate value theorem problems. And then I'll have a squeeze theorem limit where you have to do it using the squeeze theorem. Again, just testing that like the criteria that you have to show before you can apply the squeeze theorem. So again, if the squeeze theorem states like, if you have a f of x less than or equal to g of x less than or equal to h of x, and the limit as x approaches a of f of x equals the limit as x approaches a of g of x, that limit is finite, then the squeeze theorem states that the limit as x approaches a of g of x is the same. Okay, so again, like, should know the wording on how to format like squeeze theorem, intermediate value theorem, and continuity. Those are the 3 big, like prove kind of statements. So you should need to know how to write that, like the verbiage and what you need to show in order to say it. Very good. Any questions about that format? The rest of this stuff I didn't change. It's probably like, the right ideas here. It's like the main stuff we talked about. In general, though, like we talked about limit from a graph, a table, algebraically. the limit laws that you can use to like manipulate a limit. I had that little flow chart of like how you evaluate a limit with it, whether it goes to a finite, x approaches a finite value or an infinite value, and like how to approach that. You should know your definitions for the horizontal asymptote and the vertical asymptote, right? So the definition for vertical asymptote is the left-hand limit of f of x is equal to positive negative infinity, or the right-hand limit is equal to positive negative infinity, or the general limit is equal to positive negative infinity. Any of those tell you that that value is a vertical asymptote, right? As x approaches a, it tells you x equals a is a vertical asymptote. And the horizontal asymptote is, the limit is as x approaches infinity of f of x is equal to a constant. Y equals that constant is horizontal. And you have to check for as x approaches negative infinity. If you get a different value, that's a second horizontal asymptote. If either of them are non-finite values, plus or minus infinity, that one does not contribute a horizontal asymptote, but the other one still might, right? If they're both plus or minus infinity, then there is no horizontal asymptote. Does everybody, I think that's basically the vocab. Oh, and then we had the three different types of discontinuity, right? We have like a hole where like the limit exists but the function is undefined. You have a jump where the limit doesn't exist and the function may or may not be defined, right? Could be a solid, could be two opens, still a jump. And then you have a infinite discontinuity, a vertical asymptote, where the limit may or may not exist, but it's infinite, at least on one side. And that was like your three types of discontinuity. So again, like, should be able to identify like what type it is, whether it's a jump, a hole, or a infinite discontinuity or vertical asymptote. You can use those two terms interchangeably. I don't care which one you say. From looking at a graph or like a table of values or like some other information like the limit is equal to this and f of this is equal to that, right? Like should be able to recognize what that is regardless of the way I give it to you. Whether you have a picture, if you have a table, or if you have like some other information about the function. Mark?
There may be questions where you'll say like the limit as x approaches 6. So then we'll have to plug in 6.0, 6.0.
So the limit problems that I'm going to ask you to do by hand I'm going to ask you to do algebraically, but you can check them because they're all on the calculator section with either a graph or a table, but I would not, like that's so tedious, like in a time test setting, like I don't want you to spend 4 minutes like punching values into your calculator just to like do something that you could do algebraically. If I were to ask you something like that, I'd probably give you the table and ask you like, what does this table imply? And then have some options. Like that feels more like a multiple choice type question. Or even a free response, but you're given the table already, like what conclusions can you draw from this? Like it's just so tedious to do that. I'd rather not have you spend the time like doing all the button pushing, like let's do the button pushing for you and you just use your noodle to, what does this mean now? Does that make sense, guys? You guys understood what Mark was asking? And those kind of questions are fair. I'm happy to answer that kind of like, would you ask a question this way or would I have to be able to do this? And I'll tell you if the answer is no and like why it's no, like we did there. Happy to do that. Like I want to narrow this down for you relative, like quite a bit in terms of like, is this a skill that's worth doing or is this a skill that's like tedious that doesn't make sense on a time test setting? Lucia?
I just have a question
Excuse me.
on the homework.
Sure.
Because we have one homework that's due on the 14th, but it's the delta math.
Okay.
But there's another homework that we went over last class but I don't see if there, like,
Okay.
there's no assignment.
So I'll take care of that then. So
Okay.
for Sunday,
Yeah.
we have the IVT, et cetera, Delta Math, right?
Yeah.
We haven't done 2.5, right? We haven't collected that yet. I don't think I checked the 2.5, or is that checked?
I think we did.
We did check the 2.5, so the 2.6 and the Delta Math then is what I'll be looking for on Sunday.
The 2.6 what was assigned last time.
Correct.
Got it, okay, so there just needs to be a.
Yes, I'll do that in a minute when I get a chance. Thank you for pointing that out to me. But again, like, if we screw this up and we miss it, what happens? I'll just mark it missing,
Yeah.
and you have a week to fix it with no penalty,
Okay.
right? Like, so even if like these things happen, and they will, like I flake out on stuff like this, you guys screw up, like miss something that was due. If it was, you can notice on Monday when I'm checking that you got something marked missing, you have a week to fix it with no penalty, right? So I acknowledge that I'm a flake on stuff. I know that you guys are gonna make that same mistake sometimes. I'm gonna extend you the same courtesy that I would expect you to extend me. And we're just like not gonna hold each other over the coals for like tardiness on something when it's like, you know. What do you guys think? Do you have a decent idea of like what we need to kind of review and make sure we're good on? So again, like there's not a lot of technical skills going on here. It's a lot more ideas. So you really want to focus on your definitions, on like what stuff means and how do I show that, or like what is the evidence to say this, right? Like if I ask you, give you a function like what are the horizontal asymptotes for this, and you don't have a calculator, you have to use a limit to do that, right? So like if you don't know the limit definition of a horizontal asymptote, like you're kind of something. Particularly for like the no calculator sections where it's like, it's gotta be up here. You can't just like figure it out on the test day. So really, this test in particular, you wanna emphasize definitions, your theorems, and really make sure you have that stuff down and like, how to use it. Like what do I do with this now to like answer a question?
On the, when I'm looking at the homework, some of them say like 5-9-11, is that just like 5 through 11?
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes like I'll do like 5-9-11 if like the 9 is bolded.
Yeah,
Like that's the only bold problem that I had is the 5 through 11.
okay,
Because remember, like those are suggested for the quizzes, right? As like a problem to look at. So like rather than like doing 5 through 8, 9 bolded, 10 through 11, like I just do
okay.
something like that to like highlight a particular problem in that sense. So the remainder of class that we have here, I mean, I can answer individual questions if you guys have individual stuff from homework. Happy to deal with that. If you guys have stuff that you want to talk about, we can do that on a one-on-one or like a couple people basis. I think it's fine. I would ask you though, if you don't have any of that, to go take out your tablet, log on to the MyAP site, and there's like 35 or so multiple choice questions, just to give you a flavor on. It's not an assignment, although you're crazy not to do it. Your grade on it doesn't matter to me. Like when you're done, it'll give you like a report to tell you like what you got right and wrong and what your score was on it. I'm not gonna look at that for anything other than like, ooh, maybe this person I need to talk to and like catch up with is, that's what they did was not great. But like this sort of thing, it right and wrong, it doesn't really matter to me. Like if you're 50%ish, that's fine. Like that's a decent spot for where not studying and like just kind of getting used to the feel of these things. Like that's not a disaster by any means. So like don't freak out. As a fair word of warning, like these AP questions that I choose from the AP site to ask you to do, because it's a cumulative test, there might be references in like the possibilities to stuff you don't know, like what is this notation? you can ignore, you can assume that those are cross-offs at this point. Because it's a cumulative test, oftentimes it's hard to pick out a question that just narrowly, like all the multiple choice options. Even if the question you only need up to here, sometimes the options include things that are past what we've done, that are further ahead. So like if you see weird stuff in there, you can just kind of ignore the weird stuff and just count that as like a cross-off answer.
Oh,
In the AP, yeah, when you're looking at it. Now, I wouldn't do that too on your test, right? Like I'll have only things that should make sense in the context of what we've done. But I can't, I'm not gonna sit here and write 35 multiple choice questions. That would take me like 6 hours to do and do a good job on it. I'm gonna use what they have that covers the topics I want to cover. But in doing so, like you get stuff that's like possibilities of stuff, right? Include stuff that we haven't done yet. So if you see something unfamiliar, don't be like, am I supposed to know what this is? The answer's probably no. But I'm limited on like what they've constructed and given to me to choose from. Okay, so if you go and you pull out your tablet and log on to the MyAP, you look, there's something, it's called a quiz. Everything assignment I make on there has to be called a quiz. Those are the only things I can make on there. They're not actually a quiz. It's not a quiz grade.
It says test 1.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. But like that on the AP, these are called like quizzes or whatever. From there, I can title it whatever I want. That's what I titled it, like test 1 multiple choice questions. I'll also place a PDF of these same questions you're working on in the MyAP and the answer key on the OneNote for you to look at as you're studying. It's not an assignment, so you can do as much as you want. You'd be crazy not to finish it, right? Like, this is good practice. We haven't done any multiple choice practice yet, so we should work on this. But like, the score doesn't matter. You finishing doesn't really matter, but you should. But that's what we're going to work on for the next hour or so of class, is just grind on this. If you have homework questions you want to catch up on, like
can I also do my homework?
yeah, you can also do it. But like, you can ask me stuff. I'll just kind of run around. It's kind of a relaxed day. Like, do some studying, get some stuff done, get some questions answered.
Inverse trig derivatives.
Everybody's cool?
What do you know about inverse trig derivatives?
Enough.
Troy.
Sure.
Hey, Troy, check this out.
I'm gonna stop my recording here.